Born in South Central Los Angeles on August 30th, 1952, Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was the middle child of a three-child home. Said to have come from a two-parent household, Lonnie began having trouble with rules and social norms at a very early age. His father, Lonnie David Franklin Sr., worked as a port hand at a port not far from their family home. His mother, Ruby Franklin, while it is unclear whether she worked or was a stay-at-home mom, she had attended a beautician school in Texas in her earlier years. Throughout his early years attending school, it was not uncommon for Lonnie to find himself getting into trouble with his teachers. Facing numerous academic setbacks, Lonnie dropped out of school in the 11th grade. He spent a lot of time learning how to work on cars, and in 1969, at the early age of 16, Lonnie picked up his first arrest for car theft. Not long after this, Lonnie would find himself in the United States Army. It is said that he worked his way up to the rank of corporal. One Wednesday night in April of 1974, at around 12:30 in the morning, Lonnie and two other servicemen stationed at Kelly Barracks were driving around their base in Stuttgart, Germany. While driving, they noticed then 17-year-old Ingrid W. walking alone in the dark and slowly pulled up alongside of her to ask for directions around town. To thank her for her time, the three extended an offer to give the young lady a ride to the train station she was walking to. Regrettably, Ingrid would accept this offer. She climbed into the back seat of their car, and not long into the drive, one of the men pulled out a knife and placed it against her throat. At this point, the three explained to Ingrid that they would not be taking her to the train station. Instead, the car would pull into a remote lot, and the trio would take turns raping her repeatedly while holding her at knife point. One of the three young men even took photographs of the brutal attack. After the attack, the three would give Ingrid a ride to her home. During the ride, she faked an attraction for one of the men, Lonnie, and asked for his phone number. Amazingly, this worked, and Ingrid, along with local police, would use this to set up a sting to catch Lonnie. He was formally arrested for the crimes on May 6, 1974, and after a week-long trial, the three would be sentenced to around 4 years each for kidnapping and rape. For unknown reasons, unlike the other two, Lonnie would be released from jail after only serving around 11 months. Upon release, Lonnie would receive a dishonorable discharge from the Army. Not long after, sometime in 1978, Lonnie would marry his wife, Sylvia Franklin. The couple would have 2 children together. Lonnie would be described as being an average, loving father to his children. His children would recall that he taught them how to drive and is thought to have been what most would call a great dad. Though his marriage could be considered rocky to some, Lonnie treated his in-laws as family and was always doing what he could to help. To those outside his family, Lonnie would be described as kind and fun to be around. He was even reported as attending his neighbors' family celebrations and was a real socializer in the community. Admittedly, neighbors would recall Lonnie selling cheap, usually stolen items, mainly electronics, to those he considered close. But no one could know what evil was lurking beneath the surface. He would work a variety of different jobs throughout his free life. He spent some time working as a garage attendant for the LAPD in the mid to late 1980s. Lonnie would also work for the Waste Services as a trash collector. Regardless of what profession he was in at the time, Lonnie was reported as always working on neighbors' and friends' cars. He was known to have a large collection of tools and spare parts, and in general, he loved spending time under the hood. though some of his neighbors would say that at times he acted strange or often spoke negatively about prostitutes in public. No one suspected him of being violent in the least bit. In fact, Lonnie would spend majority of his life a free man till late middle adulthood. Though he was arrested several times, they were mostly for petty crimes. In 1993, he would be arrested for possessing stolen property. Then, in 1997, he picked up a charge for misdemeanor battery, followed by a charge in 1999 for assault. Lonnie would catch an additional charge for possessing stolen property in 2003. It wasn't until 2009 when police collected DNA from Lonnie's son Christopher over a weapons charge that a partial match was made in regards to a handful of murders spanning 2 patches of a large portion of the years 1984 to 2010. On January 15, 1984, at an old abandoned gas station in South Los Angeles, the body of 21-year-old Sharon Alicia Dismuke would be found. There in the men's restroom, tucked under an old torn-up section of carpet, she would be found naked and gagged, having been shot in the arm and chest. Still in her mouth was a bloody gag that investigators determined to at one time have been a white hand towel. Then, on August 10, 1985, in a dark alleyway near West Gage Avenue in South LA, police would find another body, this belonging to 29-year-old Deborah Ronay Jackson. Found to be en route from a friend's house to a bus stop just days earlier, her life was tragically cut short, suffering from 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. 1 year and 2 days later, on August 12, 1986, hidden under a mattress in an alley near Hyde Park, a neighborhood in South LA, police would discover the body of 35-year-old Henrietta Wright. Believed to have been murdered somewhere else and simply discarded in the alley, Wright suffered from numerous gunshot wounds. 2 days later, on August 14, 1986, just a couple of miles away in Harvard Park, LA, police would find a body. Yet this time it was a male. 36-year-old Thomas Sylvester Steele was found murdered, having also suffered numerous gunshot wounds to the chest. It was later found that Thomas may have been a pimp in San Diego, and while visiting town, it is possible that Thomas may have somehow discovered that Lonnie was behind the recent murders of known prostitutes around South LA.